What's up, folks? What's going on? Welcome to the Spun Today Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz, and Happy New Year. Happy 2019 to each and every one of you. This is the first episode of the new year. And in this episode, I speak about bumping mics on Netflix, which is a hilarious 3 half-hour episodes of Dave Attell and Jeff Ross cracking on each other on stage and doing crowd work. I also speak about watching the movie Bird Box, watching UFC 232, and finally, I talk about my newly renovated, revamped for the new year website, which, as you all know, is spuntoday.com. But first, a word on how you can help keep the Spun Today lights on. For those of you that are new to the podcast, there's a couple ways you can help support. Rate and review the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcasting platform. Another way you can help support the podcast is by shopping on Amazon. But instead of going to Amazon.com, go to spuntoday.com and click on the affiliate links tab on my website. There you'll see an Amazon banner. Click that and it'll take you to Amazon.com. There you'll do your shopping like you normally do, and it will not cost you anything extra, but it will help support the podcast just for driving traffic to their website. Bumping mics was a very interesting concept for a show. Think 3 nights, consecutive nights of stand-up comedy. It was either a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or a Friday, Saturday, Sunday of not long form like a set or even a workout set of stand-up comedy, but Dave Attell, the consummate comic, I would say on every comedy fan's top 20 of all time, on every comedy fan's top 10 or top 5 working comics today, coupled with Jeff Ross, who is a hilarious comic, the roast master general himself. All those Comedy Central shows, the roasts, Comedy Central roasts, were like Bruce Willis and Trump and Martha Stewart and countless others. He's, I believe that format, that show, the Comedy Central roast show, is his show in terms of creation. I want to say he is. He's definitely a prominent writer on those shows, not just for himself, and he's on every dais, and dais is like the stage of the people, the person being roasted, and the comics and celebrities and friends and whomever else is roasting the guest of honor, whatever they call him, aka the person being roasted. I believe that's his show, but he, at the very least, is on all of them and writes for other folks, like other celebrities and stuff like that aren't comedians themselves. But roasting is definitely like his niche thing. Anyway, these guys go on stage 3 consecutive nights in a row, like rag on each other and like crack jokes on each other. And it's kind of like a tit for tat type of thing to give each other kudos, aka bumping mics. They physically bump their mics, like, acknowledging that was a good one, you got me, that was a good zinger. And these are 2 top tier comics in their prime going at it, and you just see their camaraderie and how well they work off one another, but they're savvy and how quick they are, how fast each of them is, and how clever they are on the spot like that. It's pretty uncanny. They also do a lot of crowd work, and they have a lot of fellow comics came out for this 3-day event, and you see people like Nikki Glaser and Amy Schumer and Hassan Minhaj and Gilbert Gottfried, Bob Saget, and a bunch of others. And in between like sets, like they'll do like the Thursday set, and then after that, they're like in Washington Square Park, just them two shooting the shit, kind of like interview format, being asked like a question or two. Then you see like the Friday show, and then in between that show, they're like at a diner eating roast beef sandwiches, and you see a clip of them like in the green room, and all of these they have like cool outtakes like that. And each set takes place at the Comedy Cellar, the iconic Comedy Cellar here in New York City, which is known for being the go-to spot for comics to like work out their sets. And by work out their sets, I mean like work on new material. It's like the Comedy Store of the East Coast. Like on a Idle Tuesday, you can see Jerry Seinfeld go in for 20 minutes and work out a few new jokes that he has, or Chris Rock, or Amy Schumer, Dave Attell, obviously Jeff Ross. And it's actually one of the clubs that I haven't been to. I'm saddened to say. I'm shamefaced to say. It's like cursed for me or something. I planned a couple times with my wife to go, and each time that we did, plans fell through. I don't remember why. And also planned on going there with a couple coworkers in the past. Same shit happened. Plans got canceled last minute. But it's definitely a bucket list spot that I want to check out. What else? It's just funny, man. It's each episode is half hour long, so it's not like a huge undertaking for you guys to watch the series. It's only 3 episodes, so in an hour and a half you knock out the entire thing, which is just a little longer than standard full comedy hour. And you can be cracking up and laughing your ass off like throughout the whole thing also. So the format being a little bit different than what you're used to definitely does not take away from the quality of what you watch a show like this for, which is the laughs. I really laughed a lot watching it, and hopefully you will too. It's available on Netflix. Again, it's called Bumping Mics. It's super funny. 2 of the greatest comics to ever do it. And by it, I mean comedy. And you folks should check it out. Next up, Bird Box. I missed a lot of the hype of Bird Box. Like, I didn't get it. Like, I saw a lot of like the memes and shit like that online and stuff like that, and it like kind of like went over my head. Like it was like I know something's out that people are like buzzing about, whether it be positive or negative, whatever. But I don't know, it just went over my head. And I wasn't like paying too much attention to it until I saw this one meme that said it was a picture of Sandra Bullock next to a picture of Michael Jackson, and somebody tweeted, "Yo, the lady from Bird Box looks a lot like Michael Jackson," which, whatever, kind of funny. And in those 2 photographs, they actually did look pretty similar. But what got me is there was like a quote tweet, like a reply to that tweet or whatever, or like a retweet with a comment, or I don't know like what you call that exactly, but that person said, "How old am I that Sandra Bullock is known as, quote, the lady from Bird Box?" And I found that like really funny. And I was thinking like the same shit, like, yo, for real, that's nuts. Sandra Bullock is like one of the dopest actresses, and to be known as that, it's like, fuck, we are getting old. But then I guess I started like zeroing in more on the fact that Bird Box was a movie and it was on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. Then my sister-in-law was talking about it, that she saw it and she liked it, and my brother-in-law also. And I watched it, and I know a lot of people were comparing it to A Quiet Place. They were saying it's like that type of movie. And I kind of get the comparison in that, it's a dystopian future, catastrophic world-ending event type of shit going on. But I fucking hated A Quiet Place. Like, I really didn't like it. I know I spoke about it in a previous episode of the podcast. So if you're interested in my in-depth thoughts on A Quiet Place, feel free to go check it out. A Quiet Place, I would raise it one more notch from my previous, I guess, review of it, just because, and I didn't catch this until my wife told me the other day, because like I told you guys in an episode or two ago, I started watching The Office for the first time, which I had never seen. She mentioned to me while we were watching A Quiet Place that the main guy, the father, is somebody from The Office, but I had never seen The Office, so I was just like, whatever, it literally didn't mean anything to me. And when I started watching The Office, I didn't make that connection because I guess like the beard or whatever that he has in A Quiet Place and does not have in The Office. But she told me the other day again, she was like, see, that's the guy I was telling you, Jim from The Office, that's in A Quiet Place. I was like, oh shit, that's nuts. It like blew my mind a little bit. And Jim's hilarious on The Office, and one of the like most likable characters on the show. So just on the strength of that, it made me like A Quiet Place a bit more, just because of the range of acting. But yeah, back to Bird Box, because I still thought A Quiet Place was not complete dog shit, but yeah, I didn't like it. All right, Bird Box, aside from those similarities, which there's dozens, probably hundreds of movies, similar to that, dystopian futures where the world is ending type of shit. So to say that this is a just like biting off of A Quiet Place, it's like, I guess, but you're probably just saying that more so based on the recency effect. Like this, A Quiet Place just came out like last year or the year before, and Bird Box just came out now. Or about like War of the Worlds or World War Z or whatever. Anyway, so in Bird Box, spoiler alert, by the way, if you guys haven't listened to previous episodes of the Spun Today podcast, when I do review movies or shows or whatever, like I usually like speak about scenes from them and spoil shit for you guys. So if you haven't watched it yet and you want to, I would recommend skipping ahead a few minutes in case I do spoil shit for you. But the synopsis of the movie is that some shit starts happening in Russia, somewhere across the globe, and people, it's on the news, and it's on the news as like mass suicides, and like thousands of people are committing suicide, and they do not know what to attribute it to. And Sandra Bullock is the main protagonist, and she's pregnant, and she is at the hospital, getting a checkup, and her sister meets her there, and they're leaving the hospital, and Sandra Bullock sees like this freaky look in some woman's eyes, and the woman starts like just banging her head against the wall, and she starts like bleeding, but she seems like she's a fucking zombie or something. She's just like banging her head against the glass, and then Sandra Bullock kind of sort of like freaks out, but she runs out because her sister was like in the car, like waiting for her. She went to get the car, and Sandra Bullock notices that a car like crashed, and then she noticed like a couple other people like around her, like acting oddly similar, but like getting into accidents or like hurting themselves. And she gets in the car and she tells her sister, go, and what's happening in Russia, it's happening here now, just go. And while they're driving, within a few blocks, they see like other cars like slamming into each other and running red lights and being reckless, and shit hit the fan basically. Her sister is driving, and sees something. This is where like the big similarity, I guess, is between Bird Box and A Quiet Place. Is that in A Quiet Place, the premise is you can't make noise. You gotta keep quiet. If not, these monsters eat you. In Bird Box, it's you can't. Instead of playing off the sensation of sound, of hearing, they play off of the sense of sight. And you can't look at these things that we, as the audience, don't see either. We can't see, but we see when people do see the thing, and they find it like glorious and stay looking at it, and they're like hypnotized by it, and soon after like, stab themselves in the neck or jump off of a building or jump up in front of a bus or whatever, and they commit suicide basically, which is where the whole narrative of mass suicides came from when they were reporting it on the news. So long story shorter, everybody in the mother is dying. They start catching on to, Sandra Bullock congregates with some strangers, pretty much. Like a handful of strangers are wind up being in this house, and Little Rel is in it, which is cool and funny. He's always good in stuff that he's in. MGK is in it. Machine Gun Kelly is in it for a bit. Who else? The dude from Moonlight, the main character from Moonlight. I don't know his name. He was in it as well. He's one of the main characters. Like winds up being like a love interest of Sandra Bullock. There was like this mean old white dude in it that reminded me of Schillinger from Oz, the HBO prison show. I don't know if you guys ever watched that, but that character reminded me of, and it was a pretty dope cast, a pretty well put together ensemble, I thought. Two little kids that are in it are adorable. The little girl just looks like a human cupcake or something. So they pretty much catch on to the fact that these suicides and deaths and stuff happen when they start looking at these things that people keep looking at. So whenever they go someplace, they gotta go blindfolded to avoid seeing these things, and they like black out all the windows and cover all the windows with like newspaper and paint and shit like that. And it was really suspenseful, like throughout the whole thing. That's what I found like one of the biggest differences were between A Quiet Place and this, is that the suspense for me, for my taste, for my liking, wasn't like ramped up. It wasn't built up in A Quiet Place. Like A Quiet Place was a lot slower paced, I felt, which I guess added to the lackluster suspense. Whereas Bird Box, I thought, did a much better job of delivering in that. They figure out along the way that crazy people or people that have like mental illness issues, they see the thing that is making everybody commit suicide. They're able to like see it, but it doesn't kill them, or rather, it doesn't make them kill themselves, and probably because they're like fucked up in the head and whatever. So these people wind up, instead of dying, they wind up being like friendlies or familiars to that thing, and trying to infiltrate other people that are hiding, because they come off as normal, but they're actually crazy and have the ultimate goal of exposing these people to that thing that they're otherwise not trying to look at. Then at the end, they're saved by getting together with this. They had like these walkie-talkies, as they do in like these types of movies where people like try to communicate with anybody that's out there. Hello, are you out there? Type of thing. And they catch a signal one day, and it's from a group of people that are I guess like down south, somewhere from where they are, and they have to like go like whitewater rafting type of shit to like get there. Sandra Bullock winds up doing that with the two kids, and she gets to this place. Obviously has like some trouble along the way which ramps up the suspense, and but ultimately makes it. And these people, it's a house for the blind, and which kind of makes sense. Like they're not, they're good people, and they're not affected by this entity that is making people commit suicide that are able to see it. And it's like a shitload of people, and they're like protected in there, and that's pretty much how the movie ends. But I thought it was like a touch more realistic than A Quiet Place as well. Not that movies have to be realistic, because it's a movie. Like you watch a movie because for that purpose, to like suspend disbelief and immerse yourself in the world that the writers and actors and director created for you. That's literally the purpose of it. But it helps when the world that is created has certain consistencies throughout it, which for me was the fact that, not being able to like look or see in certain areas seems more doable than not being able to make a sound in any area ever. Especially when you factor in like children and stuff like that. It made more sense within the rules of the world that was created. But yeah, I definitely recommend watching it. It's a Netflix original, which is another reason why it's dope. I love seeing these Netflix original content shows and movies, as well as Prime original shows and movies, and YouTube original shows. I don't think they have a movie on YouTube. Maybe they do, but not any that I've seen. But just these like alternative media outlets and platforms that are doing it at a high level. It's pretty dope to see. Next up is UFC 232. It was a dope card to watch. Turned out to be better than I thought it would be. The card, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was initially just looking forward to the main event and the co-main event. And honestly, the main event, I don't know, there was something, I was looking forward to it, but I was looking more forward to the co-main event than the main event. And the main event is John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson, part 2. The co-main event was Chris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes. But there was a couple of surprising good fights. The other 3 fights on the main card, Chad Mendes and Alexander Volkanovski, turned out to be dope. Surprising KO finish by Alexander. And Chad Mendes, I heard, I haven't verified this myself, but a coworker of mine who's pretty into MMA and watches all these fights as well, told me that Chad Mendes has since announced his retirement. I know he's been teetering on retirement, so it's believable. And but it kind of sucks because he looked really good in his last fight, his fight before this one. But I know he's like branched off and he started like some sort of like hunting company or something like that, and he's involved with the he's from like Team Alpha Male, and he's involved in like that gym. Hats off to him. He was a dope fighter. Definitely like those that are in the know, like the Brendan Schaubs and Rogans and Dana White, always say that when a fighter is contemplating retirement, when he's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of thing, they should definitely just retire. And apparently he is in that camp. So hats off to Chad Mendes. Then the Corey Anderson fight, Corey Anderson won by decision. Corey Anderson versus Ilir Latifi, and that one was an okay fight. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like anything like too special, but it wasn't like a snooze fest either. And that was pretty cool. The very impressive Michael Chiesa versus Carlos Condit fight wound up being a surprisingly dope fight to watch. Chiesa came up from 155 to 170, and 170 is definitely his weight class. Unless this is like a one-time fluke type of thing, he looked great at 170. Like, he looked like contender status at 170. Michael Chiesa, for those of you that don't know, he was most recently in the news because of that whole incident when Conor McGregor like threw the dolly at the bus that Khabib Nurmagomedov was in. Chiesa was the guy sitting next to the window who had like shards of glass like cut his eye and his face and shit like that, and he's like suing Conor for like millions, and he's that guy. Before that, he was another fighter on the roster at 155, and I don't remember if he was like an Ultimate Fighter winner or just like one of the guys on there that wound up getting a contract or what, but he wasn't. I don't know. He was a known name, but not like the standout fighter in my opinion. But at 170, he looked awesome. You know, he doesn't have to do much of a weight cut, if at all, at 170, and he looked great. And he was going against Carlos Condit, which Carlos Condit was one of my favorite fighters at one point when he actually fought GSP for the title a few years ago. I was actually rooting for Condit and against GSP, which is one of like the greatest ever. But I don't know, I like really like Condit, and a huge GSP fan as well. But I was rooting for Condit, and I remember Condit actually dropped GSP. I don't know if it was like the first or the second round, but then GSP. I don't remember if it was like Saved by the Bell or if he just like got out of it after he was like clipped and like dazed a bit. But wound up obviously winning and retaining his belt. And he is, I would say, past his prime, Carlos Condit, but definitely still a high level fighter. And like Chiesa said in his post-fight interview, Carlos Condit is still someone that can win a fight anytime he's in there against any opponent that he has. And he's just had a bit of a streak of losses. I don't know if it's like 3 or 5 losses or something like that. Most recently, or 4 or something. Yeah, I just looked it up. 5 losses in a row. His last win was against Thiago Alves, and that was in May of 2015. So it's been a minute. 5 losses in a row. I would say he's probably approaching retirement with that bad streak. But again, Carlos looked great like in the fight. He just got caught and submitted in the second round by Michael Chiesa. And that was a surprisingly dope fight to watch. Then the co-main event did not disappoint. And for those of you that don't know, Chris Cyborg was always spoken about as being like the most feared woman on the planet. Like, she is cock diesel. She could probably fuck up guys. They say that she has like male sparring partners because there's no like women that like match up to her really, and that she's like accidentally knocked out a couple of them in training. I don't know how much of that is like hype and talk, just to like build her up, but it's definitely believable. She has a very, I don't want to say manly physique because I don't want to be like disrespectful in that way, but it's definitely like one of these like brolic, like cut, like bodybuilder looking ladies. And Amanda Nunes, and she's a champion, right? Obviously, she was someone that when Ronda Rousey was in her heyday, everybody wanted them to like fight, but she was too big for Ronda Rousey. And that was like Ronda's argument, always saying that, she's a champion. Why should she have to like go up to fight this this lady, Chris Cyborg, who has like so much hype behind her, blah, blah, blah. And everybody pretty much said that it was because Ronda was scared, but she kind of has a point too, right? Why is she going to like gain 20 pounds to go like fight someone that is, not a champion or whatever, but she did say that she would fight Chris Cyborg if Chris Cyborg went down to 135, but she just couldn't make that weight cut. She cuts weight now to get down to 145, which is where this fight took place against Amanda Nunes, which is the 135-pound champion. And Amanda Nunes took on the challenge of going up in weight from 135 to 145 and fighting the bigger Chris Cyborg, champion versus champion. Amanda Nunes is the person that knocked out Ronda Rousey or TKO'd Ronda Rousey in her return fight. When Ronda came back after her first loss against Holly Holm, came back and she fought Amanda Nunes after Amanda Nunes also took out Holly Holm and Miesha Tate. Amanda Nunes is a dope fighter, has heavy hands, but again is going up against this most feared woman on the planet. And the way I expected this fight to go, and most of the pundits in the MMA community as well, was that Chris Cyborg was just going to run through her and knock her out or TKO her the way she does the vast majority of all her other opponents. Like, she hasn't had a loss prior to this fight. Spoiler alert. And I was definitely rooting for Amanda Nunes, but I just felt that, Chris Cyborg is such a beast that she would like go through her. But if anybody stood a chance, it would be Amanda Nunes. She is probably her most formidable opponent to date, and I was definitely rooting for her. And I was stunned, amazed, and happy when Amanda Nunes wound up going through Chris Cyborg the way everybody expected Chris Cyborg to go through Amanda Nunes. In 51 seconds of the first round, Amanda Nunes knocked Chris Cyborg out cold. She clipped her and broke it down strategically after in her post-fight interview and in the in the octagon and her post-fight interview press conference, and mapped out how their training plan was, which was to kick out the lead leg of Chris Cyborg and catch her with an overhand right, because she leaves her left a little bit low when she throws it. And she said it worked exactly as expected, exactly as they trained, and it's pretty dope to see that type of like planning, preparation, and execution, and having it actually work. Must be like an exhilarating, a dope feeling. And this fight, for another reason, was I was rooting for Amanda Nunes, and must have been that much more vindicating for her, because Ronda Rousey has always been like the darling of the women's MMA community, right? She's a Hall of Famer, can never take anything away from her. She built the women's MMA to what it eventually became, and women's MMA was women's MMA because of Ronda Rousey, because of the fame and excitement and everything that surrounded Ronda Rousey and all the hype when she was like beating every single chick that she fought within seconds. They were saying that she was the Mike Tyson of women's MMA, and every opponent she had, she would armbar, and she would do it within seconds. The only one that gave her some comp was Miesha Tate, and even she got armbarred both times, I think. But she lasted like one more round than anyone else. I don't know. Whatever. She was always like the golden child of women's MMA. So after being knocked out by Holly Holm, where she got kicked in the head for her first loss, and she took this like long hiatus and kind of like went on this like sore loser like type of kick. At least that's how most people like portrayed her. She came back to fight Amanda Nunes, and the hype behind that fight was Ronda Rousey's return, and Ronda Rousey's coming back for her belt, and like all the hype and the posters and the promotion was all behind the darling Ronda Rousey. She was the one that like put asses in seats, and she was the UFC machine's prodigal daughter has returned type shit, right? But it was kind of fucked up because Amanda Nunes in that time had become the champion, had defeated Holly Holm, had defended it against Miesha Tate, or the other way around, and she was the champion, and she was getting kind of like shit on by the promotion because it was like a foregone conclusion that Ronda Rousey was going to come back and win, and the whole Holly Holm kick was a lucky kick, fluke type of thing, and she never should have lost, and etc., etc. And Amanda Nunes just fucking TKO'd her on her feet when she came back. So that was kind of like a fuck you to the promotion. And then, you know, since then has also defended her belt once or twice, and now fought Chris Cyborg, where everybody again pit her as the underdog, and this just like solidified it for her. Like, baddest woman on the planet, Amanda Nunes beat Holly Holm, beat Miesha Tate, beat Ronda Rousey, beat Chris Cyborg. First female in MMA, UFC MMA history to be a double champ at 135 and 145. She has a dope story. She's an openly gay woman. She's her fiance or wife is also an MMA fighter. She's like a big sweetheart. She's from Brazil, and hopefully now with this victory, the UFC realizes what they have in her, and if they don't, to be honest, they have like no choice to. Then the main event, John Bones Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson. And John Jones is known as being the greatest fighter of all time. The conversation always swirled around between him and Mighty Mouse, but Mighty Mouse was a 125 pounder in the UFC. He's the one that was just traded in that historic trade to another organization, ONE FC, for Ben Askren after his loss to Henry Cejudo. But the conversation was always between them two. And, you know, GSP's up there, Anderson Silva's up there, and like in the conversations of who was the best MMA fighter ever in history. John Jones is always like in that conversation. He is also someone that has like questionable and controversial habits outside of the octagon that include, being popped for like cocaine use, and he was in a not hit and run, but what do you call it? He was in a car accident and fled the scene, and was seen coming back. They like caught it on video, coming back and going into the car, and he removed. He had like a pipe or like a bong or some shit. He had like weed in the car or something like that, so he ran back for that and then bounced. And the accident was with a pregnant woman, And just like shit like that, he got popped for cocaine a couple times. He pissed hot, but for a very low dose of some performance enhancing drug, steroid, that was said to be so. He got suspended for it also, but it was said to be so small that it wasn't like performance enhancing. Like it couldn't like enhance his performance. They say that it's from like some cocaine is cut up with creatine, and this particular type of enhancement or PD that he had in his system was one that's commonly found in creatine. And they think that, you know, since he does coke and since it was such a low like a trace amount of the substance, that it must have been via coke use and the creatine that was used to cut it up. And then right before this fight, he wound up pissing hot again. And there's this whole conversation and research being done in the world of performance enhancing drugs and those that are responsible for doing drug testing, not just with the Nevada and California state athletic commissions, but also WADA and USADA, that are the premier drug enforcement agencies across sports. And John Jones, as you know, his response to it happening this time has pretty much been that, you know, it's a developing thing, and he's pretty much being like the guinea pig for these scientists and drug testing organizations to figure out what the hell it is that's in his system, because it's something called a pictogram, and which is described as being like 1 grain of salt cut up 40,000 times. And that's the amount of the substance that he had in his body, which has a shelf life of like 7 years. So it's not necessarily something new that was introduced to his body. It could very well be the same thing that he had in it before, when they attributed it to like creatine that was used to chop up his coke. And it's like such a controversial ongoing thing that they, you know, didn't call off the fight this time. They let him fight. You know, testing is just continuing to be done after the fact. You know, when the news came out, Gustafsson had the option of opting out of the fight, and he chose not to. He chose to like move forward with it. And so there's kind of like this cloud over John Jones, even though he is still regarded as being one of the best ever, if not the best fighter ever. And it was kind of exciting to watch this fight, because it was a rematch of the person that almost beat John Jones once. When Alexander Gustafsson and John Jones fought for the first time, it was a very, very razor-sharp split decision that John Jones wound up winning, but that every single person that watched that fight said it was a coin flip. Could have gone either way. Like, they exchanged back and forth throughout the entire fight. Gustafsson had like the first couple rounds. John maybe had like the third and some of the fourth, and then it was just like a close fight throughout. And then John like hit the gas in the 5th round, and people think that's what won over the judges, but they were both in the hospital afterwards, and they took a picture together, and they're both like completely lumped up. It was like an iconic picture after the time period of that first fight, and it was like all over online and stuff like that in the MMA community. And so it was a rematch of the person that gave John Jones a run for his money. And For the first fight, though, John admittedly was little partying like the week before, doing coke, drinking, stuff like that. Didn't take the fight seriously, and still pulled off a win. But there was always that doubt of, was it really that, or was it that Gustafsson just like has his number type of thing? And then we saw like in this fight that John won like handily in the third round, a TKO victory, where John Jones' fights, he's usually like for the first and sometimes the second round, sometimes like 1.5 rounds. He's like filling out the opponent and like getting his range down, and then after that it's like almost as if he like downloads the other person's like movements and then like capitalizes. And he did that in this fight, and he got Gustafsson down to the ground, just like pinned his arm and just like fucked him up. Gustafsson was like couldn't move. But yeah, it's sucks that he has like that asterisk on his name. Hopefully, if he did not do any wrong, he's vindicated somehow with the testing that's ongoing and the investigations and shit. But we'll see. Time will tell with that. And last but not least, folks, the Spun Today website has been revamped, so you guys should definitely check it out. My old website I use Squarespace to build my own website, right? I love Squarespace. It's like out of the box, dope and easy to use, and you guys can actually like build a website completely for free, like without like being charged and having to like give your credit card info and all that jazz and stuff like that. So you can see exactly how your website's going to look. Not like a version of and like pay for it and then it'll look something like this, but you could like literally build a website and then choose to like buy it or not. And it's very reasonable pricing. There's like promo codes out there, so you get discounts. You get a free domain name, and it's like less than $100 like for the entire year. If you know about websites, you can like customize shit like all you want, like with your own HTML codes and stuff like that. Or there's like tons of templates to like choose from, and that come like ready out the box. And you can like tweak certain things on those templates as well to like make them more to your liking, which is what I do, because I don't know like coding and HTML and like shit like that. But for like the tweaking and stuff like that, it's like very user friendly. It's like you click on a box that you want to change the color of and pick the color that you want to change it to, and you can insert a block of video that you want to insert, and then copy and paste the link to YouTube thing in a designated box, and then it creates a nice looking like video icon thing for you, and you'll see it. You check it out if you want to like build a website. Definitely check out Squarespace, and I recommend it. But for other things, like I said, you kind of sort of like learn as you go too. Like for example, like with my like affiliate links and stuff like that, I kind of have to figure out like where to insert the HTML codes and like grab the HTML codes from the banner building affiliate link sites, and knowing like where to put them within my site so they can like pop up on every page or just on certain pages, and change the sizing, and a lot of that is like learn as you go. But I'm no like computer science wizard or anything like that, so if I could figure that type of shit out, you can too. But again, that's like if you want to go like a level deeper, you can literally just take the out the box stuff, slap your name on it, and boom, you got a website. But I decided to switch it up a bit, because my old website I had, I guess, almost 4 years already, and I didn't change much on it in those 4 years. Like I would, update it obviously with like new content all the time, but in terms of aesthetically and like visually how it looked, it wasn't changing much, or if anything, on it. And I was, I don't know, like getting bored with it. It also didn't seem, after a while, looking at it objectively, like a site where somebody lands on it and like they want to look around. Whereas I think, and it could just be because it's like new to me, but I think I achieved that with the layout of the new website. When you get to it, right on the landing page, you know what it's about, which you didn't necessarily get from my old site, because I just had like a dope picture that I took like as the background, and you kind of sort of had to like click on the different like navigation buttons to figure out like, you know, what is this site. But this one, it's kind of like in your face in a nice aesthetically pleasing way. And right on the landing page, you have a free writing option to go check out some free writing. You have the podcast option to go check out the podcast, and you have a short stories option to go check out short stories. Then you have the smaller navigation buttons where you have all of those things, but you also have like photography and books, and subscribe if you want to subscribe to the Midday Monday Boost letter, which you definitely all should. You have my Ode to Podcast section and my questionnaire, which is always open to any writers or creatives to check out and fill out. And pretty much what it is just like 5 open-ended questions so that you can talk about your craft. And then I read your answers here on the Spun Today Podcast in a future episode. So definitely check it out. Then you have my affiliate links and my other stuff tab. You have all my social media links up at the top. And I really like the way, like when you scroll down on the site, you have like in the background my, I guess what you would call, it sounds pretentious as fuck, but like you're on brand. Like I made the site on brand, quote unquote, meaning that my YouTube is matching my website, is matching my Twitter, etc. Whereas before, like there wasn't like much like continuity between the three, and that's not a good thing. Now, if you go on my YouTube page, the YouTube banner that I created, I have that as kind of like this background image to my website. So you have the consistency there, and it's also the same on my Twitter. So if somebody's on any of the platforms, they know that it's my platform. They see like that consistency. And when I created it for my YouTube banner, I was actually like pretty proud of it. I think I told you guys about that when I did that some time ago. Then you scroll down further and you see my 3 most recent tweets for my Twitter, and then it gives you like the option to like follow me on there, and it gives you my 8 most recent posts on Instagram. And then way at the bottom, an Amazon banner that you can click on. It's an affiliate link. You can click on if you want to go shop on Amazon, and it helps support the podcast without costing you anything extra if you choose to do that. And yeah, I think just aesthetically, I just think it looks better, and will hopefully keep you more engaged when you actually go on the site. I also did like some more like pragmatic things to the site, where if you go into like each section is set up to be able to take more content, like the books section, the Ode to Podcast section, the free writing, the podcast. It's all more in blog form rather, as opposed to like separate pages, which just from a practical standpoint allows you to add more content within the same navigation without having to like upgrade to a more expensive site or more expensive plan within Squarespace called like a business plan. And I'm just happy with how it came out. So definitely check it out. It is, of course, spuntoday.com. All my short stories that I thought were worth sharing are on here. The podcast section is more built out in terms of like the episode notes, like if there's ever like any links that I mention, or for example, like everything I spoke about today, like bumping mics and David Tell and Jeff Ross and Bird Box, etc. In there, you'll find like direct links to either the bumping mics trailer on Netflix site, or David Tell and Jeff Ross's Twitter, the Bird Box trailer, UFC 232 links to my website, the outro music that you'll listen to in this and all episodes. I'll always link to the YouTube music video version, or just some YouTube version of the song if they don't have an actual music video. This week's, for example, you guys should check it out. Check out the actual music video for Dollhouse by Melanie Martinez. It's a pretty dope, creative music video. So yeah, you have that. You have all my free writing posts. Check out the photography section if you're into photography and you want to see the type of photography that I'm into, which is more like landscape. My book, which I offer for you guys, my listeners, for free, and under the books column there, or link rather, just drop in your email address and you will get a free copy in the format of your choice of Make Way for You, which is a collection of tips for getting out of your own way. If you want to subscribe to the Midday Monday Boost letter, just click on the subscribe button. The questionnaire I mentioned to you guys before. The affiliate links are just a bunch of different ways you can help support the Spun Today podcast, all of which I'll get into in the outro later. And yeah, check it out. I'm proud of the website, and hope you guys enjoy it for at least the next 4 years or so, when I get sick of it again and decide to switch it all up. And that is the episode, folks. Episode 117 of the Spun Today podcast, the first episode kicking off the year of 2019. Thank you very much for listening.
Hey girl, open the walls, play with your dolls. We'll be a perfect family. When you walk away is when we really play. You don't hear me when I say, Mom, please wake up. Dad's with a slut, and your son is smoking cannabis. No one ever listens, it's wallpaper glistens. Don't let them see what goes down in the kitchen. Places, get in your places. Throw on your dress and put on your doll faces. Everyone thinks that we're perfect. Please don't let them look through the curtains. Picture, smile for the picture. Pose with your brother, won't you be a good sister? Everyone thinks that we're perfect. Please don't let them look through the curtains. DOLLHOUSE. I see things that nobody else sees.
Would you like to receive a short email from me once a week? You know that feeling you have on a Monday at work when you have absolutely nothing to look forward to except for lunch? Have no fear, the Midday Monday Boost letter is here. In this short weekly newsletter, you will receive 5 things. 1 is a photograph of the week from a photographer. A podcast of the week. I listen to tons of podcasts, dozens and dozens of podcasts, hundreds of episodes, and I cherry pick the best ones and I share them with you here. You'll also receive a video of the week, which could be anything from a rap battle to a TED Talk. You receive a quote of the week, something to let marinate in your mind, and a word of the week so that you and I can both step up our vocab. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, check it out. Check out the subscribe page at spuntoday.com/subscribe. Drop in your email address and you'll receive the very next one. For any writers or creatives out there, I have a questionnaire. It's a 5-question questionnaire that anyone is free to fill out. It's located at spuntoday.com/questionnaire. And what it is 5 open-ended questions related to your craft. It's things like what inspires you to write or create whenever you don't feel the inspiration to do so. What are your favorite apps or tools or tricks to trick yourself into getting into the mind state of actually creating? What inspires you, etc., stuff like that. And what I do with your responses is share them on a future episode of the podcast. Now, you can choose to remain anonymous. If you choose to, you have that option right there when you fill out the questionnaire. And if you do not choose to remain anonymous, I give you a shout out on the podcast and promote for free whatever it is that you have going on. So I appreciate you in advance for sharing that with me, as well as the rest of the listeners of the Spun Today podcast, which would stand to gain from you filling out the questionnaire. Now, you can help support the podcast in a myriad of ways. One way, which does not cost you anything and is most popular within the podcasting community, is by shopping on Amazon using my affiliate links banner. So the way that works is you go to spuntoday.com/affiliate links, or just click on the affiliate links tab at the top center of the page. And there you will see a banner for Amazon. You literally just click on that and it takes you to Amazon's website where you do your shopping like you normally do. It does not cost you anything extra, but Amazon will give me a kickback just for driving traffic to their website. So that would be a big help. It literally costs you nothing extra financially, just costs you a couple of extra clicks of your mouse before you do your Amazon shopping. The iTunes banner that's on that same page works the same way. So if you're purchasing music or movies or whatever it is on iTunes, feel free to go through my affiliate link portal there as well. If you want to make a one-time PayPal donation, feel free to do so. There's a PayPal donation button on there as well. Within that same tab, you'll also find a link to the Spun Today Viral Style store. Now, the Viral Style store is a store where you can get Spun Today merch, whether it's a coffee mug or a t-shirt that I personally designed. And spoiler alert, I'm no Ralph Lauren or whoever designs Gucci stuff. But I did create the design of those shirts myself. I have a couple t-shirts on there. One that says, for example, "Right Need Every Day," which is a play off of Snoop, Dre, and Nate Dogg's "Smoke Weed Every Day." So it's "Right Need Every Day" with like a puff cloud of smoke behind it. I have a Podcast Versus Everybody t-shirt and just stuff like that. So check it out. The link to the Viral Style store is also there. You can also help support the podcast on a reoccurring basis if you become a Patreon supporter. Now, Patreon is pretty cool, and there's a little video explanation of what it is and how it works, but I'll try to do my best to summarize it here. Basically, you sign on to Patreon, which is a free service, free account, and you can support not just myself, but any other podcasters or creatives that also have Patreon pages. And you can choose to, for example, donate $1 to them on a per episode basis. So the Spun Today podcast has 2 episodes a month. So if you donate $1 to it, it'll be $2 a month, basically. And you set it up, and it just happens automatically on a reoccurring basis. There are 0 fees. You can cancel at any time. No hassle, no bullshit. And it's a cool way to help support, and is much appreciated. And also, it's not just like for example, a PayPal donation, which is just that. But through Patreon, it allows the creator, in this case being myself, to set up a reward system, if you will. So if you donate $1 per episode, you are considered a tier 1 supporter. If you donate $3 per episode, you are a second tier supporter, etc., etc. And it goes up to 4 tiers. And each tier gets different things. Like tier 1 gets a free Spun Today bookmark and a shout out on the podcast. Tier 3 gets those 2 things from tier 1, as well as a free writing piece that's not posted on my website or available to anyone else, etc., etc. So check that out if you will, and visit my Patreon page at Patreon, patreon.com/Spun Today. Another great, amazing way to help support the podcast is to rate and review it. This costs you absolutely nothing. Whether you listen on iTunes, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, on iHeartRadio, on Pocket Casts, on Overcast, on Player FM, on Google Play, on YouTube, on Tumblr, or if you listen on Podbay or any other of your favorite podcast apps. Please rate and review the episode. It really is the number one way to help the show gain traction, gain exposure. You know, you could also share it with friends and family and tell them, check out what this idiot is saying. Some of it is actually pretty good. Or it all fucking sucks and you should listen and laugh. But as long as you're listening, it would be much appreciated. So rate and review the podcast wherever it is that you listen. Follow me on Twitter or on Instagram at Spun Today. Like the Facebook fan page at facebook.com/Spun Today. Subscribe to my YouTube page as well. All podcast episodes are available on YouTube, as well as clipped versions. For example, with the Random Rant episodes, I speak about a bunch of different topics instead of having the full episode alone, which is also available on YouTube. But you also have snippets of the different topics broken up into more digestible chunks. So check that out. You can also support by checking out my book, Make Way for You, Tips for Getting Out of Your Own Way. It's a quick short read if you're looking for some inspiration and motivation, and you can find out more about it at spuntoday.com/books. There you'll find a video of me telling you all how the book came to fruition, as well as a couple of audio excerpts. If you're interested, you can purchase it wherever books are sold: Kindle, iBooks, Kobo, in ebook or paperback format, which you can find on Amazon. Also, for being a Spun Today listener, I can also send you a free copy. Right there on that same landing page at spuntoday.com/books. Drop in your email address at the bottom of the page, and I'll shoot you over a copy in the format of your choice. And that's all I got, folks. Thanks again for checking out this episode. And as always, substitute the mysticism with hard work and start taking steps in the general direction of your dreams. Thanks for listening.